the $56 billion Stargate AI data center, GitHub Copilot's shocking token billing surge, and Microsoft's new MXC security sandbox for autonomous agents. Welcome to iNuku.com, AI news you can use. Right now, we are burying tens of billions of dollars into the dirt of rural Michigan just to keep our digital brains humming, while our own personal software bills are quietly exploding 60x overnight. The physical world is violently colliding with the digital one, and the aftershocks are absolutely everywhere. We are officially transitioning from writing code to pouring concrete. Look at the sheer incomprehensible scale of this new Stargate data center they are building in Saline Township, Michigan. It is genuinely difficult to wrap your head around the physical numbers we are dealing with here. We are talking about a 1 gigawatt facility. To put that in perspective for you, 1 gigawatt is roughly the power draw of an entire mid-sized city. Or, to use the classic movie reference, we're knocking on the door of Doc Brown's 1.21 gigawatts from Back to the Future. It is incredibly ironic that Amazon recently canceled that science fiction Stargate TV show reboot because the production budget was getting too expensive. Yet here we are, in the real world, building a literal, physical Stargate in a quiet agricultural township that costs more than most global television networks combined. The financial numbers are mind-bending. The initial construction and development price tag for this single isolated campus is $16 billion. But that is literally just to build the shell and secure the massive power lines. To actually outfit that massive campus with the necessary hardware, the dense GPU clusters, the advanced liquid cooling systems, the miles and miles of fiber optic networking gear, Oracle is spending an additional $40 billion. You are looking at a single infrastructure project nearing $56 billion just to train and run the next generation of frontier models. Saline Township is traditionally a farming and light industrial community. What happens when a tech behemoth drops a $56 billion, 1 gigawatt reactor of data into a rural town? The local impact causes serious friction. When you introduce that level of extreme energy consumption, plus the water usage for cooling systems, and just the heavy construction traffic into a rural area, the disruption is profound. You are fundamentally altering the local ecosystem and the daily lives of the residents. The tech giants are acutely aware of this optics problem. They know they can't just pave over a town without severe backlash. So, to try and smooth things over, OpenAI announced a massive community investment specifically targeting the state. They are offering $45 million in Codex coding credits to over 400,000 students across Michigan. The trade-off is basically this. We are going to put immense strain on your local power grid and transform your landscape, but in exchange, we are handing your kids the most advanced software engineering tools on the planet. It is a fascinating, almost futuristic social contract. But Stargate isn't an isolated project. It is a symptom of this industry-wide scramble for physical resources. We are moving from the ethereal, invisible concept of the cloud right down into the dirt, the copper, and the power lines. The capital and hardware arms race is accelerating at a pace that is historically unprecedented. We are seeing numbers that rival national defense budgets. Look at Alphabet's recent moves. They just announced an $80 billion equity capital raise designed to expand their global infrastructure footprint. And there was a standout detail in that financial filing that made every analyst pause. The $10 billion of private placement from Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is the quintessential conservative value investor. Warren Buffett's entire legacy is built on completely avoiding speculative tech trends. They invest in railroads and insurance companies. They do not chase software hype, which is exactly why this matters so much. Berkshire Hathaway invests in fundamental infrastructure. They buy utilities. Their massive financial involvement here signals a profound market shift. It means AI compute is no longer viewed as software. It is viewed as a fundamental global utility, as essential as water, gas, or electricity. Alphabet has to raise this kind of capital because the demand is suffocating their current capacity. Companies are begging to pay them for compute that doesn't physically exist yet. Here is where the mechanism gets really interesting. We are talking about so much money being borrowed simultaneously by these tech hyperscalers, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, that it is actually rippling into global macroeconomics. When tech giants need to borrow $1 trillion cumulatively, they issue corporate bonds, and to attract buyers, they offer high yields. So the sheer volume of this capital borrowing required to fund this AI buildout is now directly driving up long-term U.S. Treasury yields. It is incredible to watch. The United States government, which is obviously also trying to sell debt, suddenly has to compete with Microsoft and Alphabet for the exact same pool of global capital. You are literally seeing cloud computing reshape the cost of national debt. The sector is so massive that it is actively altering global government debt markets, and all of that borrowed capital is chasing the exact same physical bottleneck: semiconductors. We are in the middle of the most intense global semiconductor chess game in history. The OECD just issued a severe warning that escalating geopolitical tensions, combined with volatile global energy costs, could seriously disrupt these global AI semiconductor supply chains. If one link in the chain breaks, a $56 billion data center just sits there empty. The chip makers are reading the same geopolitical tea leaves. They know exactly how much leverage they hold, and they are responding aggressively. TSMC CEO C.C. Wei recently signaled upcoming price hikes across the board simply because they can. They have immense pricing power right now because demand is utterly insatiable. And look at NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. He just made a highly strategic trip to South Korea. His goal wasn't just to sell GPUs, it was to secure the supply chain. He went to lock in the critical memory ecosystem with massive suppliers like Samsung and SK Hynix. Because you can't just build a $40,000 AI processing chip in a vacuum. You need high bandwidth memory to feed data into that processor. If the processor is a massive V8 engine, the high bandwidth memory is the fuel injector. Without it, the engine just starves. That specific high bandwidth memory boom is what is fueling SK Hynix right now. And they have secured such strong investor support from this exact AI wave that they are planning a massive US public listing. But NVIDIA isn't the only player on the board. We really have to talk about Intel's massive counterplay at the recent Computex event. If we are running out of power grid space, Intel is claiming they are fixing this by focusing heavily on power efficiency, which is exactly what data center managers are desperate for right now. At Computex, they unveiled their new Xeon 6 processors, and the crucial introduction was their Sierra Forest E-cores. An E-core stands for efficiency core. Instead of building one massive super power-hungry processor to do all the heavy lifting, you build dozens of smaller, highly efficient cores. These can handle background tasks and orchestration using a fraction of the electricity. By implementing these Sierra Forest E-cores, Intel actually enables what they call a 3-to-1 rack consolidation. So if you have a data center, you can take 3 physical racks of older servers, rip them all out, and replace them with just one rack of Xeon 6 servers and get the exact same performance. You reclaim 2/3 of your physical floor space and drastically slash the heat output and the electricity required to cool the room. That is a total lifeline for data centers struggling with physical space and grid caps. Intel also announced highly competitive pricing for their Gaudi 2 and Gaudi 3 accelerators, explicitly aiming to undercut NVIDIA's dominant H100 chips by a significant margin just to win back market share. And on the consumer side, they introduced the Lunar Lake client architecture, boasting a 48 TOPS NPU. Let me translate that. An NPU is a neural processing unit, a chip dedicated entirely to running AI tasks locally on your laptop so you don't have to send everything up to the cloud. TOPS stands for trillion operations per second. A 48 TOPS NPU means your everyday laptop can perform 48 trillion mathematical calculations every single second just for AI features. That is literally supercomputer territory in a consumer device. But expectations are so stratospherically high right now that any slight miss is punished severely by the market. We saw Broadcom stock take a massive tumble recently, simply because they missed their custom AI chip revenue forecast by a very slight margin. The market demands absolute perfection. Expanding from corporate competition up to the geopolitical level, governments are terrified of being left behind. They see AI compute as national security. France initiated a staggering 110 billion AI investment boom to rapidly accelerate Europe's push for technological sovereignty. And if you are a developer sitting in Chicago or London, this is why your software stack is about to fracture. The European Union simultaneously unveiled the Cloud and AI Development Act, or CADA. This is a direct legislative attempt to force domestic tech sovereignty. The EU does not want its entire banking system, healthcare sector, or government infrastructure running on American software that is processed on American-designed chips hosted in American-owned data centers. They want a European stack, AI infrastructure arms race, data centers, semiconductors, and the rising cost of compute. Which brings us back to the ultimate physical constraint, the environmental toll. Because whether it is built in Michigan or Paris, we are building these gigawatt data centers and pouring hundreds of billions into silicon. What is the actual physical cost to the planet? A recent United Nations University report laid it out very clearly. They warned that the energy, water, and land footprints of global data centers could double by 2030. And very soon, AI workloads alone will account for 40% of that massive total usage. We are talking about electricity consumption on the scale of entire industrialized nations just to power these models. And it is not just power. The sheer volume of water required just to cool the servers, evaporating millions of gallons of potable water into the atmosphere, is becoming a massive point of contention for local municipalities. To address this at a systemic level, the EU launched the AI Grids initiative to sustainably integrate these massive data centers directly into the European energy grid, so they balance the load and dynamically adjust their power draw during peak hours. Here is a mind-blowing practical stat regarding that environmental toll. We tend to think of this entirely as a corporate problem, but it's actually a user behavior problem too. Research shows that cutting the word use in your prompts by 30% reduces the energy used to process that prompt by roughly 25%. Think about the mechanism of how an AI reads text. It turns every single word into a mathematical token. Imagine every word you type is a heavy physical brick. When you type, "Please, if you have a moment, could you kindly summarize this document for me? Thank you so much." You are literally making the GPUs carry 20 heavy bricks across a warehouse before they even get to the actual task. Think of it like keeping your car engine idling in the driveway for 10 minutes just so you can finish listening to a song on the radio before you drive. You are burning extra coal, gas, or nuclear fuel just to be polite to a server rack. Stop saying please. Just tell it what to do. Every single token requires complex matrix multiplication, which physically requires electricity. To save power, you have to be concise, and that physical cost of compute is exactly why we need to transition to the software side. All this physical infrastructure isn't just humming in the background for free. It is powering a new generation of software that is actively executing tasks, and the tech giants are now sending us the bill. If you thought the hardware was expensive, wait until you see your software subscriptions. The billing shock is officially here, and it marks the definitive violent end of the subsidized AI era. For the last 3 years, OpenAI and Microsoft have essentially been eating the cost of compute just to get us all hooked. It was a classic tech play. But now the free ride is over. We are seeing a massive uproar right now over the GitHub Copilot token pricing disaster. Copilot recently shifted to a usage-based token billing model. As a result, we are seeing projected monthly bills for power users running what we call agentic sessions surge anywhere from 10x to 60x. People are suddenly getting hit with invoices for thousands of dollars a month for a tool that used to cost a flat $29. Agentic AI, token billing, and the hidden cost of compute. Let's translate the deeper pattern here and break down exactly what the mechanism is. What is the difference between the old flat rate models and this new usage-based token billing when it comes to agents? It really comes down to the fundamental difference between a simple chatbot and an autonomous agent. In the old model, you typed a single question, the AI generated a single answer, and the interaction completely ended. It was a discrete, one-off transaction, very cheap to run. But with autonomous agents, the AI is running continuous, endless background loops. It is constantly reading your entire code base, caching context, executing a step, reviewing its own work, checking for errors, and generating new outputs. Let's make this real. Imagine you hire a digital sous chef for your kitchen. Under the old flat rate chatbot model, you pay the sous chef $50. You ask them how long to cook a turkey. They say 4 hours and they leave. Transaction over. Under the new agentic token billing model, you give that digital sous chef your credit card and say, cook this entire Thanksgiving dinner. The sous chef starts preheating ovens and chopping vegetables. But here is the kicker. They charge you by the second, every single time they open the oven door to check the temperature. And they check the oven every 3 seconds just to be sure. Every single action, and every time they read the recipe to remember the context, they swipe your credit card. Those background loops consume cached context and output tokens exponentially. If the agent runs 500 checks in an hour, you are paying for all 500 checks. You unleash an agent, and it just runs the meter up autonomously while you sleep. This structural shift is not just hitting individual developer tools, it is tearing through the entire corporate landscape. The rapid rise of enterprise AI is violently disrupting traditional IT consulting. Historically, if a Fortune 500 company wanted to undergo a massive digital transformation, they hired a legacy IT consulting firm, an army of humans in suits who take 6 months to write a report. Now, the major AI labs are building their own highly specialized advisory arms. They are taking their enterprise AI models, going directly to the corporate buyers, and completely bypassing the legacy consulting middlemen. We are already seeing the macroeconomic proof of this labor shift. Look at India's Reliance, one of the massive global conglomerates. We are seeing a distinct hiring slowdown, a massive global bellwether, suggesting that AI adoption is no longer just a fun pilot experiment. It is beginning to structurally reduce corporate headcount growth. Companies are realizing they can scale their output and handle complex tasks without scaling their human workforce at the same historical rate. Which loops perfectly back to Sam Altman at that Stargate groundbreaking in Michigan. He openly confessed that the AI industry's messaging on job anxiety has completely failed. The tech labs haven't properly communicated how this labor transition will actually work for everyday people. They just keep saying it will make you more productive without ever explaining what happens to the hours you actually save. Here is the part you can actually use. The productivity gains are very real, but the management of those gains is completely broken. A recent BCG survey found that utilizing AI saves frontline workers up to a full day per week. That is a massive 20% increase in productivity. But the critical failure is that 66% of those workers receive absolutely zero guidance from their leadership on how to redirect that saved time. What this means for you as an everyday professional is that the critical skill of the next decade is no longer just task execution. If you can write a report in 1 hour instead of 5, great. But the real skill is managing and reinvesting that reclaimed time. If AI does your Tuesday workload by Monday afternoon, what do you do on Tuesday to make yourself indispensable to the company? Do you strategize? Do you build new relationships? The workers who figure out how to allocate their AI reclaimed time will thrive. The ones who just sit idle will be the first ones cut. That is the defining question for the modern workforce right now. And while the labor market tries to adapt, the financial markets are gearing up for a historic, unprecedented supercycle of wealth generation. The numbers are staggering. Anthropic recently filed a confidential S-1 draft preparing for a historic IPO, right off the back of a $65 billion Series H funding round that gave it a mind-blowing $965 billion valuation, nearly $1 trillion. OpenAI is reportedly targeting a September public debut, and SpaceX is also in the IPO pipeline. Are we absorbing too much capital at the very top? I mean, these IPOs alone could collectively add up to $4 trillion in new market capitalization in a very short window. But there actually is massive downstream money flow. The capital isn't entirely locked up in the foundation models. For instance, Cisco launched a $1 billion global AI investment fund for the networking side. And we are seeing massive funding rounds pouring into specialized application layer startups. Companies like AlphaSense, Sierra, Adaptive Innovations, Findigs, and Board are securing huge capital to build specific tools. The projected economic value of all these tools combined is astronomical. A report by Microsoft and Accenture revealed that generative AI could add $187 billion annually to the Canadian economy alone by 2030. Reports also indicate a $100 billion potential specifically for small and medium enterprises globally. But to justify these multi-trillion-dollar valuations, the technology has to evolve. It has to move out of the browser window. We cannot just be chatting with a website forever. It has to move into the operating system itself. That brings us to Microsoft's full-stack takeover. Their strategy at the Build 26 event was incredibly clear: ubiquitous, inescapable integration. They officially unveiled Copilot Agent Mode. This moves their AI from a passive assistant that just waits for your prompt into persistent tasks that run autonomously in the background inside your everyday apps. They introduced the Scout Autopilot agent and rolled out 7 new in-house models. But the most critical announcement for actual enterprise adoption was the MXC Security Sandbox. Designed in collaboration with OpenAI and NVIDIA, the Microsoft Execution Container is an OS-level sandbox designed to securely isolate and validate these autonomous AI agents. Think of MXC like a digital bomb disposal chamber for software. When you tell an autonomous agent to execute a complex task like rewriting a database, you don't really know if it's going to hallucinate and accidentally delete your hard drive or email your proprietary code to a competitor. So the operating system drops the agent into this digital bomb disposal chamber. The agent is inside doing its work. It can run virtual code, try things out, even detonate, but it cannot physically touch the outside operating system. The OS watches from the outside, verifies the result is safe, and only then takes the finished output out. You absolutely cannot have autonomous agents operating with root access to your company's network without a massive validation layer. And to complement this, Microsoft introduced agent confidence scores. If an agent calculates its own reliability for a specific task as low, if it isn't sure it's doing the right thing, it automatically halts and routes that task to a human for approval. This is where you need to stay human in the loop. It is a built-in safety net. Microsoft is also pushing hard on the physical hardware side to support all this local processing. They announced the Surface RTX Spark DVOX and Windows Local AI. But then they casually dropped a completely mind-bending quantum detail: the Majorana 2 quantum chip. The wild part is that this advanced quantum chip was designed with the help of AI agents. The AI is actively accelerating the timelines for practical quantum computing. We are entering a feedback loop where AI is helping design the next generation of hardware that will run the next generation of AI. And NVIDIA is aggressively entering the Windows AI PC race with the RTX Spark chip and the Vera CPU, directly targeting local edge-based computing, because NVIDIA realized there's a fatal flaw in relying entirely on the cloud for everything. If an autonomous forklift in a warehouse loses Wi-Fi for 2 seconds while carrying 2 tons of steel, someone gets crushed. The latency is unacceptable for robotics. So NVIDIA unveiled the DGX Station and the Cosmos 3 model specifically for physical AI robotics. Their software frameworks, Jetpack 7.2 and NemoClaw, bring advanced agentic reasoning directly to edge devices. A robot on a factory floor processes its visual reasoning locally and instantly. It looks at a box, understands it's upside down, and flips it over entirely on its own silicon. But as these massive giants build these closed trillion-dollar corporate ecosystems, we are seeing a fierce pushback from the open source community and a demand for local resistance. The desire for sovereign AI is very real. People and entire nations do not want to rent their brains from California. The Swiss AI Initiative recently released a PERDIS, a fully open source foundation model aimed at establishing regional sovereign AI for Europe. Google DeepMind just dropped Gemma 412B, an absolute beast of an open-weight model. It is an encoder-free multimodal model with native audio. Let's explain why native audio is such a massive leap. In traditional AI models, if you speak to it, it uses one system to transcribe your voice into text, feeds the text to the AI, and uses another system to generate a robotic voice back. During that translation layer, all the human nuance gets flattened. Native audio means the AI processes the actual sound waves directly. It hears a sigh. It hears sarcasm. It understands tone. And incredibly, Gemma 412B runs entirely locally on a standard laptop with just 16 gigabytes of RAM. On top of that, Minimax promised to release the weights for their M3 model, featuring a massive 1 million token context window. That means you can upload your entire company's codebase, plus HR manuals, plus 50 quarterly financial reports into the AI's short-term memory at once. It changes the paradigm entirely from searching for answers to synthesizing across your entire business. Now's Research put out the Hermes Desktop, a native graphical user interface that makes it simple for anyone to deploy a local agent on their home computer. Meanwhile, you have Meta reportedly delaying the release of its Musipark AI model. The open source grassroots movement is moving incredibly fast, and the giants are struggling to keep up. Enterprise IT buyers are watching this dynamic very closely. We are seeing a definitive trend where buyers are prioritizing orchestration middleware over committing to specific foundation models because nobody wants vendor lock-in. If you build your entire company around OpenAI and suddenly they triple their prices or suffer an outage, your company dies. Buyers want a platform of middleware that lets them swap out OpenAI for Anthropic or open source models seamlessly. And the platforms are coming fast and furious. OpenAI updated Codex with a feature called Sites, allowing autonomous agents to dynamically build and host interactive enterprise workspaces on the fly. Crucially, to avoid lock-in, OpenAI 5.5 and Codex are now officially available on Amazon Bedrock. Salesforce debuted Agentforce for marketing. Meta introduced an enterprise-focused AI business agent for small businesses. Snowflake announced major updates like Cortex Analyst. Zip launched specialized AI agents to securely handle corporate contracts. Urun announced its enterprise automation platform reached 1 million users. MWM AI partnered with Google Cloud for automated app creation via Gemini. Even globally, Tencent is gearing up to pilot a WeChat AI agent to hundreds of millions of users in China. The deployment is literally everywhere, but moving from the flawless scripted software demos on a stage to the messy reality of human society, international law, and morality is where the real friction lies. And right now, that friction is coming from inside the house. We recently saw a bombshell open letter signed by current and former workers from OpenAI and Google DeepMind, explicitly warning of severe existential risks within the AI industry and aggressively demanding better safety oversight and ironclad whistleblower protections. The regulatory scramble is in full effect globally. The White House issued a sweeping executive order mandating advanced AI cybersecurity hardening and requiring 30-day voluntary reviews for any new frontier model before public release. The government wants to see exactly what these things can do before they go live. But OpenAI is actively pushing back on how that regulation is structured, proposing their own federal AI safety blueprint and advocating for civilian oversight via NIST. They emphatically do not want military or intelligence oversight via the NSA. OpenAI is also actively distancing itself from a pro-AI political action committee backed by its own president to block astroturfing and maintain public trust. It is an incredibly delicate tightrope walk for a company with that much power. The European Central Bank is formally requiring all major banks to fortify their defenses, specifically against AI-enhanced cyber attacks. Executives have publicly endorsed legislation that would require strict screening of synthetic DNA orders to prevent bad actors from manufacturing bioweapons. And then there's copyright. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority ordered Google to allow publishers to opt out of AI scraping. Major Canadian publishers formed the SPU Alliance to demand formal licensing agreements. But on the flip side, a CCIA Europe study warned that rewriting the EU's text and data mining rules to protect publishers could cost the regional economy up to 600 billion euros in lost innovation. Despite all the friction, the lawsuits, and the regulations, we have to acknowledge the real-world triumphs happening right now. We are seeing smart sensors deployed in maple syrup production, Roofab utilizing AI for precision pipe welding, auto recycling plants building AI-driven dashboards. Riken launched an AI photo ID system designed to verify construction worker identities on job sites to prevent time theft. Yahoo rolled out AI tools specifically tailored for NBA fans to analyze player statistics. Fujitsu announced an enterprise-wide generative AI framework that combines knowledge graphs with AI auditing technology. A knowledge graph is like giving the AI a massive detective string board where every fact is hard linked to another fact with a physical string. It grounds the AI in strict, verifiable relationships so it cannot hallucinate. It makes the AI reliable enough for enterprise auditing. Legendary director Martin Scorsese joined Black Forest Labs and is using their Flux model for rapid film storyboarding. New Limit raised $435 million to begin human clinical trials for a cell reprogramming therapy that was dramatically accelerated by AI simulation. The practical applications are accelerating human progress across literally every domain. And that's your daily dose of AI know-how from Inuku.com, AI news you can use.